Hi guys, it's Bunny. Today's video is going to be a little bit spookier. I've been binging content about ghosts recently, and I wanted to share some of my own personal experiences. Ever since I was little, I've had experiences that I genuinely cannot explain. Some were small, and some I feel genuinely keep me up at night till this day. I've always felt spiritually sensitive to this kind of thing, and I still really believe in the paranormal. So here's just some of my childhood ghost stories. So my first one happened, I had to be like 7 or 8, probably younger, because I think actually this was before I moved into the house that I went to first grade in. So maybe I was younger. I don't entirely know how old you are in first grade, but I was younger than that. So we had this apartment. It was my mom, my brother, and I think my grandma would visit us all the time. But it was like a duplex, like a really small apartment, but it had an upstairs. And I remember my mom was in the kitchen cooking, and my brother wasn't home. But I went to go upstairs and play with my dolls. And I was like very anxious as a child. I still am. And I remember because I didn't want to leave my mom, but I wanted to play with my dolls. I would play with my dolls at the top of the stairs and wait for her to either call me all the way down or to come up the stairs because she didn't want me to have my dolls all over the place while she was doing things downstairs. So there I was playing with my dolls down. There I was playing with my dolls at the top of the stairs. I remember I had this specific doll. She had brown skin and she had like a full jean outfit. It was like a jean jacket and a jean skirt, and she had these like a dark pair of shoes on. I can't remember if it was a pair of boots or not, but she was like one of those plastic dolls. Her arms did not bend. It was like one of those cheap plastic dolls. But I've never had any issues with this doll. And I remember when my mom finally called me downstairs for dinner, I left the doll at the top of the stairs. Nobody else was home. But when I came back from dinner to go get my doll, it was broken. Her head was detached, her arms were detached, and her legs were detached. And I think at the time, because I was a child, I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, oh, my doll is broken. And I was like, how did my doll break? And I remember getting in trouble for that because I think my mom wasn't believing that I didn't do it. And she like fully thought it was me. And I'm just like, dude, no, my doll is broken. I really love this doll. So, yeah, which kind of didn't make sense to me because I felt like in that house, nothing felt evil, like nothing was ever broken. Even if things were moved, I felt like nothing was ever destroyed, if that makes sense. The only other thing that would happen in that house was the doorbell would go off all the time, and we would have our landlord come and look at it, and he would be like, there's nothing wrong with it. It was just the doorbell will go off. We would look, like peep out the window to see if anyone was there. There was never anyone there. There was no ding dong ditch, no knock knock zoom zoom, none of that. Like there was never anyone. And I remember um my landlord at the time, or he didn't tell me this, I was a child, but I remember someone else told me that our landlord said that someone died in that house from falling down the stairs. So I'm wondering, maybe it was just a warning to me to not play at the edge of the stairs. I don't really know. That was just my experience. I think I just ended up throwing that doll away. I don't think anything else came from that experience. I think it was just one and done. Yeah. I was too little to do anything. So, and then I want to skip to the house that we moved in after that house, just because I feel like I was a little bit older, so I kind of remember a little bit more. Um, but my first story that I wanted to get into was when we first moved in. My mom's room was in the basement for whatever reason. It was just, we had a lot more people living with us at the time, and we had a bigger basement. So my mom's room was in the basement. It was furnished, it had windows, so it wasn't really an issue. But I didn't like sleeping alone. I honestly I didn't sleep alone until I was like 15, 16 years old because my mom always let me sleep with her. So I remember um, we would always sleep downstairs. Sometimes my brother would too. But I remember we had cousins over and we would also play downstairs because it was like the entire basement was the size of the entire house. The only thing down there was the washer and dryer, and then also my mom's like the area that she was in, and then the rest of it we had like a TV and a bunch of like other couches, and then the rest of our toys were down there. So I remember it was me, my brother, my mom on the other side of the basement, and I want to say two of my cousins um were all there in the basement. And we had just freshly moved into this house and we were just like freshly settled in. And I remember all the lights just started flickering. Every single one of them just started flickering. And then going to the basement is the side door, like to get out of the house. Like there's a stairway and then side doors at the top of the stairway. And then go down the stairs, the basement. But it felt like the lights started blinking, and then we were hearing bang, 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 and it sounded like we were hearing it from the side door. And mind you, if we want to get out the basement, we have to go by the side door, which at the time I don't think had a curtain, right? And my mom is like, guys, calm down. It's probably just electricity. It's probably just windy. Mind you, it's not raining. It's not raining. It's not windy. Um, so we all run up the stairs. We run up the stairs past the door. We don't see anyone there, by the way. And then all the lights in the house are still flashing. And I remember, because at this point I wanted to run into my own personal room. I wanted to run into my room, but I felt like I saw a shadow in the hallway of someone standing there. It was like, so my room was like the very last room in the hallway. It was like the bathroom, my brother's room, and my grandma's room, and then my room. So if I would have to run past this figure, but I'm like paralyzed in the living room seeing this and just screaming and crying. And then all the lights just go back to normal. No more banging, no more nothing. It just goes back to normal. And then everyone else is like laughing, like this was so funny, like this was just something that happens. I don't know. I was scared. I think that was paranormal. I will always think that's paranormal. Like, there's no way. I felt like nobody was believing me. But like when this was happening, I felt like I was seeing things, like I was seeing a person. Um, and then I would always felt like I hear like voices in that house, like people talking all the time. Even if no one else was home or if no one else said anything, it would feel like I was hearing people talking. And I remember there was even times where I'd be home with someone else and I look at them and I say, "Hey, did you say something?" And they'll be like, "No, did you?" Um, I also felt like in this house was the first time I've ever felt like I saw a full blown like apparition, like an act it felt like an actual person, but like something just wasn't quite right about it. And you were like, oh, maybe that was like actually a spirit. Because I remember the layout of this house like doesn't make sense, I guess. So, like from the front door, you go up the stairs to the front door, and then straight from the front door, you pass the living room and you go into the kitchen. And then from the kitchen, like over the sink, you can see out the window to the backyard. And then that's where the side door is to the basement and stuff. But anyways, this story, I had just came home from school and I was like washing my hands in the kitchen or something. And I look up, like out over the backyard, and I see a man. Like, and it wasn't like a black shadowy figure. Like, no, this was a black man in a white t shirt and like dark jeans. And it felt like I couldn't fully see his face, but I felt like it was definitely like seeing someone in my backyard. So, um, at the time, I remember my cousins were outside playing because we had just got home from school. And then I think they immediately just saw their friends and went outside and started playing. So me being one of the older people in the situation at the time, I went out there and I was like, "Hey guys, watch out for that man." Why? And I was gonna say, "Why are you in our backyard?" Um, but by the time I didn't see him walk past the side door, by the way, because it felt like he was walking past our garage, um, and he was gonna pass by the side door, like to our um driveway. Like it felt like he had a walking path, like from our garage to the driveway, and he was just like going out to the front of the yard. Um, but mind you, we had a fence, so if he was like coming from our backyard, he was either already inside of our garage or like he jumped the fence or something to get back there. And I don't know what he could possibly have been doing back there because our garage had a lock on it. But anyways, I don't remember feeling like I saw him walk from past the side door, but I remember sprinting to the front door because I was gonna say, "Hey, what are you doing here? Who are you?" And I never saw him again. I never saw this figure again. I never saw this person. Nobody seemed to know what I was talking about, and there was multiple other people outside. And I felt like just saw some dude walking. Never saw him again. Oh, I guess it's not a full on story, but another like memory I had from a child was when I would play with my dolls, they would not speak. I would just like make them move and interact with each other because in my head, I was speaking for them. Like in my head, I wouldn't say it out loud. But I also was a very weird child. I was like almost mute in a sense, like I was almost nonverbal. I only talk in certain situations. And even when I played with my dolls, I did that. Like I only made them speak in certain situations. Um, but I remember it felt like I had someone else that I was playing with at some point. Um, and maybe it was an imaginary friend because when I ask other people about it, they act like they don't know what I'm talking about. They act like they've never played like this with me. But I remember when I played with my dolls, someone else would be playing with me and we wouldn't be talking. We would just be moving. We would like our dolls would wave at each other. They would like get inside the little cars together. Um, but they wouldn't be talking because I didn't talk. Um, yeah, not too much to that story. That could just be a broken fragment of a memory, but I remember like playing with people, but no one in my family remembers like playing in the way that I remember playing. Like, I remember I had this big clown dog. It was like a clown dog that was almost the size as I was at the time, like the size of like a 6 year old. It was a big doll and it was a bunch of fun different colors and had a bunch of fun buttons on it and it took batteries. And I remember I would play with this thing all the time because I love that it spoke and I didn't have to. Like it made noise and stuff and I thought that was so fun. And I remember all the time it would turn on it by itself and it would almost feel like it was in different positions around the house all the time. And I I wish my family was here while I'm telling the stories because I feel like they remember more about this story than I do because they ended up throwing that doll away. I didn't throw that away. I love that thing. They threw it away because they thought that I was making it scary. Like they thought I was the one moving around the house, but I remember I wasn't. And I would always look for that doll. I would always want to play with that doll. That was my favorite thing ever. Next is my most recent story. Not my most recent, but my no most recent like big thing that's happened. And it was in this house. This is my grandma's house. I'm in my grandma's room right now because I'm visiting. But when I lived here, my room was across the hall from this room, and I had my own bed. This was an early morning that this happened. This had to be around 6 o'clock in the morning because I remember the sun was already coming up. It had to be in the summertime for sure. It was definitely in the summertime because it was early and the sun was already up. But I was laying in bed and I think I was like on my phone or something. I wasn't sleeping very good at night. Um, and then I hear this noise. Like I look over my shoulder because it sounded like the door opened up. Like imagine I was like laying on this side of the bed and then I would look over to see the door kind of like making a noise. So I look over my shoulder and it looked like this bright white light was like coming towards me, like walking around the edge of the bed and coming over to this side that I was laying on. And it felt like that shocked me to the point where I couldn't move. And mind you, I've never had sleep paralysis. I don't know if this was sleep paralysis because I felt like I could move. Like, if I wanted to move, I could, but it felt like what I was seeing was like, I don't know if I should move, you know? So it was just this, and it was like in the shape of a person, right? Like, you can imagine a head and you can imagine a body, but it was just like this bright white light. And it came around the edge of the bed where I was laying, and it kind of just stood in front of me, and I kind of just looked at it. Because, mind you, I didn't have my glasses on. It was early. Like, I don't know if anyone else was awake. I didn't know if I should move. And I just kind of looked at it. And it felt like it was going to reach towards me. And then it was just kind of gone. And then I think I ended up deciding that I wanted to get up and walk around the house just to like ease my nerves and just kind of not be in the room anymore. I don't know if it was good or a bad thing that that happened. So I just kind of got up, got out of the bed, and I think when I went back to the room, like I kept the door open, I turned the TV on, like I just wanted to be awake. And I was already awake for hours. Like I don't think I ended up sleeping very well for a while after that. And I was very like nervous to be in that room. And I ended up like for days. For days after that happened, I think I slept with the TV on because I was scared that I would see it in the dark or that would come back and then actually like do something to me because it felt like it wanted to. It felt like it was reaching for me. Like there's more things in this house that has happened. Like you can hear screaming, like very loud screaming, like jarring screaming occasionally. And you get up and you like walk around and check and see what's going on. You look out the windows to check on your neighbors and it's nothing. Like there's no one there. And there's other things that happen that I can make a part two on. I think I shared enough on I think I've shared enough this video. So let me know if you want part two because I definitely have a lot more that I can share and talk about. I know I'm not the best storyteller, um, but I would love to do more. Do. I also um would love to do a video about my experience with fairies because in the first house that I talked about when I was really young, we had a dark circle in the grass that I didn't know was a fairy ring until years later when I was much older. But I would always play in that ring, so I would love to do a story about my experience on that because I think that did end up affecting me. And do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had in my notes. If you're interested in more, please like and subscribe. I would love to start posting more regularly. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.